That's what happened.
Was it a principled compromise, given that he had voted for them on the stimulus package, or a compromise of principle that allowed the White House, Obama, Biden, and everybody else to get behind our inspector so aggressively when he switched parties, when they clearly knew that he was doing it? You ran the ad, we all saw it. He was clearly doing it just to win. So on the part of the White House, was it a principled compromise or a compromise of principle for them to get behind him so aggressively when they knew it was just about him winning?
I think it was about a establishment that literally had politics and vote counting above principled compromise. I do. I have great respect for people in Washington, D.C., but I frankly disagree. I would argue that if you had someone like Senator Kennedy, if he had been in that Senate, who could do a principled compromise with Senator McCain on immigration, with George Bush on education, that we would have been so much more rewarded for having had more worries about shaping that policy and fighting for it. How could we have begun with that 60th vote all the way down until we were letting health insurance companies not have ripped away from them their exemption for antitrust? That means we're paying higher premiums. That's what my party should stand for.
I hear your argument. I hear your case, rather, that you're making an example you've offered about President Kennedy. But I'm asking not about Kennedy, but respectfully about Obama and what you make. You've said very clearly that you don't think it was, that there was anything criminal about them trying to get you out of the race. I'm asking now, though, what you think respectfully about the way they so aggressively got behind and endorsed Arlen Specter when they knew that he was only switching parties because he wanted to win, and he said so publicly.
I think it was wrong.
Okay.
There's no more kings, there's no more kingmakers in America, and if the Democratic Party should stand for anything when they're trying to get me out of the race, they should be for enticing people into the race. This president said it so well, and I believe he believes it. Believe in principle, and politics will follow. No, the party establishment was wrong in what it did.
I accept that. You mentioned earlier the Gulf War. We're involved, of course, in Iraq and Afghanistan. This war now has hit the 104th month officially today. This is now the longest war in all of U.S. history. How should the American people read that, Congressman?
They have, I read it right now as, wait a moment, do we have an exit strategy? And I believe the public wants to know. And the president has not yet provided it. I wrote a letter asking for the exit strategy that we were promised, and I received a letter back, and quite frankly, it was not adequate. I supported this president for one reason, to seal the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, because there's a safe haven of al-Qaeda in Pakistan where we can't go. And sealing that border to convince Pakistan to go and exterminate that safe haven to where they can't, with the Taliban that is in Pakistan, flee across the border away from them, and Pakistan won't do it then. Sealing that border was important. But I know that we have to have benchmarks measuring success and failure. We don't have that yet, although we were promised it. And this cannot be an open-ended commitment. Without that, my support for this can't be open-ended either. We have poured too much treasure into this conflict not to know measurements if we are being successful, and we don't have that yet.
Should President Obama and the White House give the American people a date certain?
I don't believe in this conflict we should yet do that. Benchmarks that show whether we are exterminating that al-Qaeda safe haven, whether Pakistan truly is moving from south to north or Waziristan in order to help exterminate it. Those benchmarks of success are what we need. I am not yet at a date certain for only one reason. We have the leadership of al-Qaeda there that can plan against us. And then when I went on the ground for a short period of time, at the beginning of that war, and I mean a short mission, very short. I'll never forget what I heard from the head of the National Security Agency, General Hayden, before I went in. He said, Joe, General Franks keeps telling me, give me some actionable intelligence. I keep telling him, give me some action, and I'll give you some intelligence. If we don't have some boots on that ground in order to make al-Qaeda move so we can pick them up with our covert listening devices in order to get them exterminated, then we can't just give a date certain right now. We need to see if we are being successful in that, and that's the sole reason to be there. But ultimately, without that benchmarks and seeing if we're successful, then you move to a date certain.
I mentioned both Iraq and Afghanistan, and of course, when we talk about the 104 months now, making it the longest war in U.S. history, we're talking specifically about Afghanistan. Iraq, of course, came later, just to set that straight. I got about a minute and a half to go. Let me ask you about this BP oil spill and what you would be saying, what you'd be calling for if you were, in fact, now a member of the U.S. Senate. And since you mentioned financial regulation, financial reform, rather, there are some who believe that it's not going to happen now because the oil spill has basically kind of pushed everything off to the side. Your thoughts?
Financial reform must happen. We took the referee off the football field in Wall Street. We must have regulation up there. If I learned anything in the military, I learned expect what you inspect, and that must go through. To let any special interest stop us is wrong. Also, I believe very strongly that Democrats have to understand that MMS, that office, Middle Management Service, truly needs to be divided. I know they're about to do it, but how could they ever have permitted over the years past to let oil companies fill out the inspection forms? How could they permit them to have $80 billion in tax loopholes? There's so much to be done to correct accountability down in Washington. And back to your first question, Tavis, that's what this election was about, and I believe across America, that's what people are saying. Enough. Accountability, not just responsibility. Accountability for what you're responsible for, from Wall Street down to BP, down to senators.
You've always been kind to come on this program. Even before, you were the guy that upset auto inspectors. So I'm glad to have you back, and I look forward to talking to you many more times in the future. Congressman, good to have you on. All the best in your race.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, remembering an American sports icon.